Welcome back to another gripping and thrilling story. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating tales. Some betrayals announce themselves with a single text message that changes everything you thought you knew about your life. I found it on a Tuesday morning while Darius was in the shower. His phone buzzed against the marble countertop, and I glanced over expecting to see a work notification. Instead, I saw her name, Celeste, followed by words that made my skin crawl. Can't wait to feel your hands on me tonight. 15 years of marriage, and my husband was sexting another woman at 7 in the morning. I set the phone down with steady hands, though my pulse hammered against my throat. The sound of running water continued from our en-suite bathroom, the same bathroom where Darius and I had renovated together 3 years ago, choosing each tile with the kind of care reserved for people who believed they were building something permanent. I, Dr. Zara Williams, tenured professor of African American Studies at Georgetown University, published author, respected academic, devoted wife, and full. I walked to my office and closed the door. My hands shook as I powered up my laptop, but my mind had already shifted into research mode. If Darius wanted to play games, he'd chosen the wrong woman to deceive. Celeste Thompson, my husband's mistress, worked as a public relations manager at Stancap & Co., the same firm where Darius worked as a senior architect. Married to Julian Thompson, a software engineer at a tech startup in Arlington. 2 kids, ages 8 and 10. She had a life, a family, a husband who probably kissed her goodbye every morning the way Darius used to kiss me. I spent the next week gathering information with the methodical precision I brought to my academic research. Darius's credit card statements revealed monthly dinners at upscale restaurants. His phone records showed calls that lasted hours, usually when he claimed to be working late. The pattern stretched back 13 months. 13 months of lies. But the detail that made my blood run cold wasn't the frequency of their meetings or the obvious intimacy of their messages. It was the restaurant reservation I found in his email for the upcoming Friday night. The Glass House, the same place where Darius had proposed to me 16 years ago. He was taking her to our place. That's when I decided to stop being the victim and start being the architect of my own justice. Julian Thompson worked at a company called Tech Forward Solutions. I called their main number Thursday morning, introducing myself as Dr. Williams from Georgetown University. I explained that I was conducting research on technology innovation in small businesses and wondered if someone might be available for a brief interview. Julian Thompson would be perfect for that, the receptionist said. He's one of our most experienced developers. Wonderful. Would tomorrow evening work? I could meet him at the Glass House downtown around 7:30. I'll check his schedule and have him call you back. Julian called within the hour. His voice was warm and professional, with a slight southern accent that suggested roots in the Carolinas. He seemed genuinely excited about the opportunity to discuss his work, and I felt a stab of guilt for the deception, but not enough to stop. I'll be wearing a navy blue blazer, I told him, and I'll have my university materials with me. Perfect. I'm looking forward to meeting you, Dr. Williams. If only he knew what he was really walking into. Friday arrived with the kind of crisp October air that made Washington feel almost romantic. I dressed carefully, the navy blazer I promised, but paired with a black dress that made me feel powerful rather than professorial. I wanted to look like the woman Darius had married, not the woman he was betraying. I arrived at the Glass House at 7:15, 15 minutes before my appointment with Julian, 30 minutes before Darius's reservation with Celeste. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. Mrs. Williams, how lovely to see you. Will Mr. Williams be joining you this evening? Actually, I'm here for a business meeting, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. But I do believe my husband has a reservation for 8 o'clock. Yes, of course. Table 12, his usual spot. His usual spot. The knife twisted deeper. I'd like to request table 14, if it's available. Table 14 offered a perfect view of table 12. The maitre d' looked puzzled but accommodated the request without question. Julian arrived exactly on time. He was taller than I'd expected, with warm brown eyes and the sort of genuine smile that suggested he still believed the world was fundamentally good. He wore a simple button-down shirt and carried a leather portfolio that had seen better days. Dr. Williams? I'm Julian Thompson. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We shook hands, and I felt the calluses on his palm, the hands of someone who worked with his tools, built things, created rather than destroyed. Please call me Zara. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. I'd prepared several questions about his work, enough to maintain the pretense while we waited. Julian spoke passionately about coding, about the small nonprofit projects his company took on, about his dream of developing educational software for underserved communities. He talked about his children with the sort of unguarded affection that made my chest tight. His daughter wanted to be a veterinarian. His son was obsessed with astronomy. My wife always says I talk too much about work, he said, laughing. Celeste in PR, so she understands the importance of knowing your audience. There it was, her name, spoken with such casual affection. Tell me about your family, I said, though the words felt like glass in my throat. Celeste's amazing. We met in college, been married 12 years. She's brilliant at what she does. Could probably run the whole agency if she wanted to. But she's also the most loyal person I've ever known. Sometimes I think I don't deserve her. At 7:55, I saw them enter the restaurant. Darius looked exactly as he had every day for the past 15 years, tall, elegant, wearing the charcoal suit I'd helped him pick out for his last promotion. His hair was slightly longer than usual, and he carried himself with the confident stride of a man who believed he was untouchable. Celeste was smaller than I'd expected, with auburn hair and the kind of effortless style that suggested she spent considerable time and money looking casually perfect. She wore a red dress that hugged her curves and heels that clicked against the hardwood floor with purposeful rhythm. She was beautiful. I had to give her that. They were seated at table 12, the same table where Darius had nervously fumbled with a ring box 16 years ago while asking me to be his wife. Julian was still talking about his work, but I could barely hear him over the sound of my own heartbeat. Darius and Celeste sat close together, their bodies angled toward each other in the unmistakable language of intimacy. When the waiter approached, Darius's hand briefly touched the small of her back, the same gesture he'd used with me 1,000 times. I'm sorry, I said, interrupting Julian mid-sentence, but I need to ask you something, and I'm afraid it's going to be difficult to hear. He stopped talking, his expression shifting from enthusiasm to concern. Is everything all right? I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. Julian, how long have you been married to Celeste? The question clearly puzzled him. 12 years. Why? And you love her? Of course I love her. What kind of question? He stopped, his eyes narrowing slightly. Dr. Williams, what's this really about? I turned slightly in my chair, angling my body so he could see table 12 clearly. Do you see that woman in the red dress? Julian followed my gaze. I watched his face change as recognition dawned, watched the color drain from his cheeks as understanding hit him like a physical blow. That's... He couldn't finish the sentence. Your wife, I said quietly. With my husband. The silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of two shattered worlds. Julian stared at table 12 with the expression of a man watching his house burn down. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his water glass, and I found myself feeling genuinely sorry for him in a way I hadn't expected. How long have you known? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I found messages on Darius's phone last week, but I suspect it's been going on for over a year. He closed his eyes, and I saw his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed hard. The late nights, the conferences that seemed to come up out of nowhere, the way she started caring about her appearance again. I noticed and told myself I was being paranoid, that she was just excited about her career. He opened his eyes and looked at me directly. You're not really a professor doing research, are you? Actually, I am. But no, that's not why I asked you here. What do you want me to do? The question hung in the air between us. I'd planned this moment for days, but now that it was here, I felt the weight of what I was about to unleash. I want you to help me walk over there and end this. Julian looked at me for a long moment, then at his wife, then back at me. They look happy. They do. And we're about to destroy that. Yes. He was quiet for another minute, watching as Darius leaned across the table to whisper something in Celeste's ear. She laughed, the sound carrying across the restaurant like a knife blade. Okay, Julian said finally. Let's go. We stood together, two betrayed spouses united in purpose. As we approached table 12, I saw Darius's eyes widen in recognition, then narrow in confusion. Celeste followed his gaze and went pale when she saw Julian. Hello, darling, I said to Darius, my voice carrying the same casual warmth I'd used for 15 years. Fancy meeting you here. Zara. Darius's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. What are you doing here? Having dinner with Julian. You remember Julian, don't you? Celeste's husband. Celeste hadn't said a word, but I could see her chest rising and falling rapidly. Darius looked between Julian and me, his lawyer's mind clearly working overtime to find an angle, an explanation, anything that might salvage the situation. I think there's been some misunderstanding, Darius said, standing up. No misunderstanding, Julian said quietly. I've seen the messages, Celeste. All of them. Celeste finally spoke, her voice shaking. Julian, I can explain. Can you? He pulled out his phone and began reading. Tuesday, 3:15 p.m. I dream about your mouth every night. Wednesday, 10:20 a.m. I've never wanted anyone the way I want you. Thursday. Stop. Celeste's voice was barely audible. Yesterday, Julian continued, 4:30 p.m. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. The words hit me like a physical blow. Darius had told her he loved her. How did you know? Darius asked, his composure finally cracking. I backed up her phone to our shared cloud account 2 years ago, Julian said. She forgot to turn it off. I reached into my purse and pulled out our wedding ring, placing it carefully on the table between the two of them. I think we are done here, I said with a cool tone that surprised even myself. Darius reached for my arm as I turned to go. Zara, please. We need to talk. I looked at his hand on my arm, then at his face. We'll talk, but not here and not now. You've done enough damage to this place. Julian was already walking away, his shoulders rigid with controlled emotion. I followed him outside, leaving Darius and Celeste to deal with the wreckage of their romantic evening. The cool October air felt sharp against my skin. Julian stood on the sidewalk, staring up at the streetlights. What happens now, he asked. Now we figure out how to put our lives back together. The next few months blurred together in a haze of lawyers, divided assets, and the complicated choreography of ending a marriage. Darius moved out the following week, taking only his clothes and his computer. He left behind 15 years of shared memories and a house that suddenly felt too large and too quiet. Celeste, I learned through the efficient gossip network of mutual friends, had been fired from Stancap and Company. Apparently, workplace affairs violated company policy, and Darius's position as senior partner hadn't protected her. She moved back to Atlanta with her children, leaving Julian to navigate single parenthood and the aftermath of betrayal. Julian and I started meeting for coffee every Wednesday morning. It wasn't romantic. We were both too raw, too damaged for anything beyond friendship. But there was comfort in talking to someone who understood the specific pain of being replaced. The way infidelity makes you question everything you thought you knew about your own judgment. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, he said one morning in December, stirring sugar into his coffee with mechanical precision. I know, but I've been thinking about it differently lately. How? Maybe we didn't miss the signs. Maybe we chose to trust instead of looking for reasons to doubt. Maybe that says something good about us, not something stupid. He looked at me across the small table, and I saw something shift in his expression. When did you become so wise? When I stopped being so angry. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in February. I walked out of the courthouse into bright winter sunshine, feeling lighter than I had in months. Darius had been generous with the settlement. Guilt, I suspected, though his lawyer had couched it in terms of amicable resolution. Julian was waiting for me on the courthouse steps, holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing the sort of smile that suggested he'd been waiting for this moment almost as much as I had. How does it feel? He asked, handing me one of the cups. Like I can breathe again. That spring, we started spending more time together. Not dates, but something that felt like healing. We explored the city like tourists, visiting museums and galleries, trying new restaurants, discovering that we both love jazz music and terrible reality TV. I found myself laughing more than I had in years. Julian had a dry sense of humor that caught me off guard, and he listened to me talk about my work with genuine interest, rather than the polite tolerance Darius had shown in recent years. Do you think we're ready for this? I asked one evening in May as we walked along the Potomac. We'd been dancing around the possibility of something more for weeks, but neither of us had been brave enough to name it. Ready for what? He stopped walking and turned to face me. I don't know if anyone's ever really ready for love, Zara, but I know I'm ready to try again. With you. The kiss was soft, tentative, nothing like the passionate desperation of new love. It was the kiss of two people who had learned that trust was more valuable than fire, that kindness might be the most important foundation of all. A year later, I ran into Darius at Georgetown's homecoming gala. He was alone, though he mentioned a new girlfriend, someone young, someone who worked in marketing. I felt nothing but mild curiosity about her, the same way I might feel about a character in a book I'd read long ago. You look happy, he said, and I was surprised to hear what sounded like genuine pleasure in his voice. I am happy. Good. You deserve to be happy, Zara. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that I wasn't the person who could make you happy anymore. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever received from him, and I found myself oddly grateful for it. Thank you, I said. I hope you find what you're looking for. Julian appeared at my elbow, carrying 2 glasses of wine and wearing the navy suit I'd helped him pick out the previous weekend. He kissed my cheek and handed me a glass, the gesture so natural and comfortable that I felt a rush of gratitude for the strange path that had brought us together. Ready to go home? He asked. Home. The word had taken on new meaning over the past year. Not just a place, but a feeling of safety, of being known and valued exactly as I was. Yes, I said, taking his hand. I'm ready. As we walked toward the exit, I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, the one who'd found that devastating text message and felt her world collapse. She'd been so focused on the betrayal that she'd forgotten to consider the possibility of renewal. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the door to the best thing that happens to you. Sometimes revenge is just another word for justice. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to tear down what's broken, you discover something beautiful waiting to be built. If this story shook you, there's more where that came from. For unforgettable drama, betrayal, and real-life twists, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.